What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and the fishnet man you see before you doesn't mean it's time for S&M fun. It means it's time for the most insane Kusarigama build you have ever seen. Now with this build, we aim to maximize the damage of the Kusarigama, shying away from shuriken and kunai, and maximizing the weapon to its full potential. But in addition to that, we also managed to maximize our soul cores to the maximum potential as well, taking our cores up to a whopping 100% additional soul core damage, allowing Otakumaru to hit literally double the damage he typically does. So, with all that being said, before I jump into it, gotta give a big shout out to the folks on the Nioh 2 Discord. Without them, this build would not have reached the ridiculous levels of potency you are about to see. I'll have a link to the Discord in the description, but whether you're looking to trade soul cores or trade inheritables or a particular item that you can't get to drop, they are without question the most helpful community in existence when it comes to gaming. So join the Discord, make some friends, help build the community. But jumping on into the build, the basis is quite simple here. We're going to be working with the Ruler of the Riverside Yokai set. Now we get 40 attack defense Kusarigama, 5% melee damage, a 15% boost to Whirlwind, and 22.3% efficient Yokai abilities. Now efficient Yokai abilities in particular is interesting, since it's going to allow us to get back a big chunk of anima anytime we kill an enemy off with a Yokai ability, and that's going to come into play in a little bit. We're also going to be running Psychic Yatagarasu, picking up the 4-piece set bonus, which will give us the melee damage and dodge key consumption. Now, if we go on down, we have a Nekomata here, which gives us 20% Yokai ability damage feral, and an additional 5% Yokai ability damage feral from our secondary Guardian Spirit. We're going to be running Ippon Datara, which gives us 20% Yokai ability damage against an enemy that's scorched, and an extra 10% Yokai ability damage all. A Rukurukubi for 20% Yokai ability damage to poisoned enemies, and an additional 10% Yokai ability damaged all, and then lastly, an Otakumaru with 15% Yokai ability damage. And when you pull this all together, you have a build that when you have scorched and poisoned the enemy, your Otakumaru is capable of doing double the already ridiculous damage that it's capable of. And how are we going to poison and scorch the enemy, you may ask? Quite easily, through poison shurikens and through flaming hair and feathers. And all in all, you have a build that is capable of absolutely overkilling every piece of content in the game. Now jump on into it. First up, we are running the Kawanami Kusarigama. You're going to have to use this to take full advantage of the set. In particular, we have one with corruption on. Now to get corruption on this weapon, or purity in fact, you have to craft one that has it or find one in the wild. You cannot temper purity or corruption onto weapons. Keep that in mind. Beyond that, we have a lot of stats that are going to be focused around just general weapon potency. So break and melee key damage, as opposed to things like active skill key damage and active skill break, life drain melee attack, final blow as opposed to grapple, and lastly, attack bonus, either skill or dex here, since both stats are 99. If you want a corruption version of this weapon, I'll also be dropping that along with the soul cores at the Fire Gods Magatama, so keep that in mind. Should be pretty easy to pick up. A lot of folks in the community also have this that's already floating around. Now the reason we're running corruption in particular is Kusarigama, just with the sheer nature of its attacks, is already an incredibly potent weapon versus Yokai. It has a lot of verticality in its swings, it dunks all over horns, and it has a lot of rapid attacks that help to destroy the key on any Yokai that you're fighting. Despite that, humans can be a little bit finicky when it comes to Kusarigama. If they're blocking a lot, you may have trouble getting through them. If you go for leg sweep, that might work, but if you're not running heavy armor, you have a lot of vulnerability while you're trying to get that ability out. Corruption solves all those problems. Corruptions absolutely decimates any human opponent in the game. And since we already have Yokai covered, just through the sheer potency of our Yokai abilities and the fact that we're running Kusarigama, Corruption is an excellent choice here to help dunk all over humans as well. Now, if you don't want to get Corruption instead, I'd suggest actually going for Water. That way you'll at least benefit from the extra water damage that is the 4-piece set bonus, but otherwise you can really run whatever you want here. Corruption, Purity, Water, you could even go for Scorched or Poison on it if you really want to be lazy. Moving on from there, Hachun and Butsu just here to get a set bonus. Warrior of the West and Raven Wing, as always, make sure you have damage bonus agility on whichever is your primary. In the helm slot, we're going to be putting the Yatagarasu headband. In the other 4 slots, we're going to be putting the Kawanami set. Now, make sure you have tenacity and faster winded recovery on 1 piece. Make sure you have elemental damage taken while guarding on 3 pieces. Beyond that, we want attack, Untouched Ninjutsu, and Crimson Flurry damage. Now there are a couple different abilities you could actually choose instead of Crimson Flurry. You can't get inheritables for Whirlwind because it's already a part of the set. So your choices, your three big choices really are going to be Crimson, Renegade Dragon, or Blade Spin. Now those are the three main abilities I suggested in terms of consistency. Leaping Strike is also a choice, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of a weird move to invest heavily in. So talking about each of these very briefly, Crimson Flurry is going to be the highest damaging of that group of three. That being said, the tracking is also fairly poor on this, and the main time you would execute this is when you're right behind an enemy, or the enemy gets stunned, or they just get bottomed out of key. If you're just spamming Crimson Flurry, it's not going to work out well for you. This is very much a timed execution. If you are more of a spam-happy type player, Renegade Dragon is going to be a pretty safe bet. The damage is significantly less than Crimson Flurry, roughly 50% less, but it is still a pretty potent move that can benefit from having the inheritables. The last one I want to make mention of is Blade Spin. Now, Blade Spin is going to be lower damage than both Renegade and Crimson, but it excels in consistency. Pretty much no matter what, you are going to stay on the enemy with this ability. It is amazing tracking, so if you're looking for very consistent damage that you can do in any situation, Blade Spin is a good choice when it comes to inheritables. Moving on from there though, Wise General's Pillbox and Yasukani Magatama could alternatively run a separate Magatama here. The whole reason is we want the life recovery on Amrita absorption. Beyond that, we have Untouched Ninjutsu on this and Ninjutsu bonus on this, and you'll notice I also have the melee damage versus poison and poison accumulation. Now, the poison accumulation is to help get poison up even faster via our poison shuriken. The melee damage versus poison is just because it's kind of a no-brainer here. Even though poison isn't going to be a focal point of this build, we are going to be poisoning boss opponents for the sake of our soul cores, and if we're going to be doing that, we might as well pick up the extra 50%. Now, I honestly think that poison is probably going to get nerfed, because having an extra 50% just from putting in a fix on my two accessories is kind of bogus. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of damage. So as such, we don't have poison on the weapon. This isn't a focal point. The whole point of poison is having the yokai ability damage poison enemy, which even if poison gets nerfed, I doubt it's going to change that effect. So if poison gets nerfed, just get rid of melee damage versus poison, but as long as it's still in the game, it's an extra 50% damage, we might as well use it. Moving on from there, Protection Talisman. Because we're in all light armor, having two of these will greatly help our survivability. Flaming Heron and Poison Shuriken. These are going to be our two best bets in terms of applying both Scorched and Poisoned. Explosive Shuriken takes a moment to detonate, so it's going to be inconsistent, whereas Flaming Heron has excellent tracking, and you can Yokai Shift to dash cancel out when you're casting this, which I'll show a little bit later. Poison Shuriken, most cases, it'll take one, maybe two to get this applied to an enemy. Moving over to our buffs, Quick Change Scroll, as always. Arc Yokai Talisman, giving us even more anime game with this build. Barrier Talisman, because who doesn't love Ki? And then 2 Tiger Running so that we can sprint through levels on speed running. When it comes to Guardian Spirits, Nekomata, as I mentioned, is going to be an excellent choice here. We have an anima bonus on Ninjutsu hit. We have the 20% Yokai ability damage Feral, and of course the extended burst counter on Feral as well, which is very nice quality of life. One of the main reasons we're running this over the GOAT, for example, is this has the anima charge bonus based on cumulative damage, which is going to be really, really nice to have with a build like this. Beyond that, for the Otako, Ippon, and Ruka Rukubi, I'd suggest getting in the Discord and looking around for these. Getting these 3 soul cores with Yokai ability damage and attunement cost was actually quite an achievement of the community on the Discord. A lot of people coming together and dropping and sharing soul cores to really get the best of the best. Of course, all 3 of these have been changed to be feral using mortal soul cores, and you're going to want that to take advantage of the 25% bonus we're getting here via Yokai ability damage feral. As for our secondary Guardian Spirit, we are going to be working with Hyokucho. Now, you only have a couple of different choices here because we want to get the Yokai ability damage feral, and there's only a few that are going to have that. So you could have Hyokucho, which will give you Medicine Burst, which is a 15% extra heal. You could have Masaru, which has Auto Grave Recovery. And the last one you could have, where is he at? Yatagarasu with the Untouched Ammo. Now, you can run whichever one of these you want. Oh yeah, eat a curry as well. Item drops, so that's not a bad choice if you're still farming. Personally, I find Medicine Burst to be the most useful out of all those things that are listed, but really run whatever you'd like for your secondary. If you don't like using Feral at all, instead you would do this build with Akutaku here. He has the 20% Yokai ability damage Phantom. If for some reason you're trying to make this work with Brute, you could run Hiobishin, but he has 18% damage. There isn't actually a 20% damage Brute, so keep that in mind. Moving on from there into the skill tree. We're going to go up here to pick up Crimson Flurry. This will be our top stance move, highest damaging ability in this tree. We're going to be wanting to go all the way up here, picking up the final blow damage. You'll notice it's 844 as opposed to most trees, which are 432. Over here, Deliverance. This is going to be our high stance finisher. We pick up Shadow Strike for damage dealt from behind. We have Second Wind. You can actually get this from the same guy this set comes from, the Kappa Man. Awesome follow-up move to Whirlwind. And Whirlwind itself is actually quite a potent ability. It's the second highest damaging ability in the Kusarigama, right behind Crimson Reaper. We are going to be running Serpent Bite. When it comes to parries, I'm not a big fan of Waterfall. Serpent Bite is more of like a counterattack parry, and it actually has better damage than Waterfall. So we're going to be putting that on to help deal with human opponents. As for our ability, Shooting Star is the clearly superior choice. If you're running Blade Spin, you might want to consider Waxing Crescent, but you have so many more attacks that use the metal weight on the Kusarigama than you do using the blade, so Shooting Star is pretty much a clear winner here. Retreating Strike and Low Stance, Tangle Strike and Tangle Strike 2. This is actually going to be our finisher in mid stance. You can also put it in low stance if you want, but I actually like Retreating Strike a lot to disengage. Chain Pull doesn't get used, but we had to pick it up to make our way down to get all 3 points of Relentless. Over here, we have to pick up Reaper to make our way up to Blade Spin, just a solid ability to have in top stance, along with Summer Twilight, which is essentially like a discount version of Rage. Down here, Whirlwind Kick is going to be our low stance Keybreaker. I also picked up Leaping Strike because I managed to get the Water Drop special ability. It's not all that powerful, but it is really flashy and a lot of fun to use, which is the reason we have it on. But if you don't have access to that, you could just run Reaper on low stance. Beyond that, any additional points you have, you would fill up Passage to the Afterlife for Grapple, and then beyond there, Melee Mastery. Now going into the skill customization, we're going to be putting Damage Boost Dexterity on our Crimson Flurry, and we're going to be putting Damage Boost Skill on Whirlwind. This will keep these two as our strongest abilities. Blade Spin, we're going to be putting Imperious Strike. This will increase how much anima we can get off of it, and we put it on Blade Spin because it's our most consistent move in terms of tracking on targets. Beyond that, on Leaping Strike, I have 5% health if it defeats an enemy, just because the follow-up kick on that is pretty funny, and that's a good way to finish. Pretty decent damaging ability move there. Whirlwind Kick, we have Masterful Slice just for extra key damage, since if I'm trying to really shatter key, Whirlwind Kick is where I'm going to go. Beyond that, if you want to put on more, feel free to, but that is going to be the basis. Now moving on over into the stats. Our two primaries are going to be Skill and Dexterity. Both of those are going to go up to 99. Magic we have up to 15. This is going to allow us to run all the talismans that we have. Strength is left down at base. Stamina we have up at 10 right now, which will put us healthy, or comfortably I should say, into Agility. Keep in mind as you continue to level up your gear, you may have to increase stamina. I left it at 10. That gives me a little bit cushion so that it might be fine for now. Courage to 9 for your Yasakani, of course. Heart to 30, which is just a comfortable breakpoint. And then any other additional things we have, we're going to be dumping into Constitution to just get our health nice and high. So that is going to cover the build. Let's jump on in and show off some fights. Now, for most enemies, you want to consider what that enemy is going to be weak to. With Ryumin, of course, we can't actually get him afflicted with fire, so instead we would just do poison before executing our ability. You can see how right there, using Crimson Flurry, we actually ended up getting a whiff. And that's what I was referring to when I said you want to make sure you got the target stunned before you go in and use it. But when you do some insane damage with it. Now for a human opponent. Now we'll do a fight against Azai. Also going to show y'all how to do the dash cancel this time as well. So cast it, dash, cast it, dash, cast it. And you can do this as many times as you want. Like as long as you have as long as you have ninjutsu for it, you can do entire boss fights like this. Next we got Shibata. And to wrap things up, let's bring it home with everybody's favorite punching bag mission. Like I said, this move's not that good, but I don't know. Something about flying down and kicking something in the face. It's really satisfying. And that's going to wrap things up. So we didn't even really showcase the super crazy hyper Otakumaru because, to be honest, y'all have seen Otakumaru before. You already know how absurd he is, so just take the absurdity and double it. But either way, between the ridiculous amount of yokai damage, the sheer shredding potential of Crimson Flurry, or the ability to chain dash and cast heat-seeking fireballs, all in all, you have a Kusarigama build that can absolutely destroy all of the content in the game and all of the content moving forward as we look forward to the DLC. So with this build having wrapped up, that was actually the last one I had in mind. As for what to look forward to in the future, more than likely there won't be any more builds until we actually get DLC. The only things I haven't done at this point are barehanded builds or range damage builds, but both of those are kind of gimmicky, and I think we have a pretty substantial playlist of different builds to go through. So for more Nioh content, stop on by on the streams. We're playing every Monday night, just doing co-op with viewers and whatnot, which is always a good time. But either way, thanks for coming by and checking it out. Hope y'all enjoyed the build, and I'll catch you guys all next time.